Good morning, West USA. Welcome to another edition of our Monday morning webinar. Appreciate everybody joining us today. And let's just get rocking and rolling, because for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to entertain you with announcements and upcoming events. Thanks for that, Nick. I appreciate that. All right.
He's so bitter in the morning.
It's Monday.
You're an angry elf.
All right. So, all right, Todd, leave the jokes to the professionals.
Which I usually do.
All right, little sneak peek of what we got coming up today. Todd's gonna get those numbers posted to the Facebook groups later on this afternoon, so be on the lookout for that. Of course, we've got Matt Baker here with the Bookspan Baker team to give us our mortgage minute. Going to talk about, well, what do you do after you hand somebody the keys that are going to generate more referrals? And then we've got Anthony Cucci in the house. We're going to talk about tips to running a successful business. A lot of people really do not understand his business acumen, because most people go, well, why would you have a home inspection company? But anyways, very successful in many, many businesses. So we thought we'd have him come in and just share some insight to running a successful business. All right, comments or questions, always feel free to email us at webinar@westusa.com. Let's get into the announcements. As always, all of these events you can find on the dashboard to get signed up. But this coming up Tuesday, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, there's going to be a special class, well, not really a class, more informative of what's going on in the town of Buckeye. So if you do business out in Buckeye, if you're out on the west side, you need to make sure to attend this class. Our own John Littlefield, this guy is a very, very savvy investor. So if you are looking at investing or helping your clients invest, highly recommend you attending John Littlefield's class. It's going to be an in-person class tomorrow as well at 10 o'clock at the Chandler office. All right, Todd's got a CE class coming up this Wednesday. So if you're looking for 3 hours of disclosure law and don't want to get out of your jammies, you can get signed up for this class, and that'll be this Wednesday from 9 to 12. The Chandler office meeting is coming up this Wednesday from 10 to 11:30. So great opportunity to learn how to build wealth through short-term rentals. I'm not going to talk about it, but obviously the Arizona Supreme Court handed out an incredible ruling in limiting HOA's ability to govern short-term rentals. So a lot of investors are looking for short-term rentals. Highly encourage you to take that class as well. But more importantly, class, blah, 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 blah. Let's talk about happy hours. All right, so this coming up Wednesday in the Surprise office. And as always, any of these events, it doesn't matter what office you hold your license out of, you are more than welcome to attend. But it's going to be at Tailgaters, one of my favorite places. So it's coming up this Wednesday from 4:30 to 6:30. All right, Facebook. Keith Flynn is doing his next class on maximizing local Facebook groups. A lot of money, a lot of leads to be generated through Facebook. So that is coming up this Thursday, May 19th. This is a virtual class. So get signed up and you can attend this class from the convenience of your own home. All right, Wise Agent is and this is going to be important because we're going to talk about leveraging your CRM systems to generate more referrals later on this morning. So if you do not have a Wise Agent CRM system or have one and want to learn how to use it better, that is coming up this Thursday, May 19th. It's an in-person class in Surprise. All right, another happy hour coming up. Boy, which one's this one? Chandler's happy hour is coming up Thursday, May 19th, this Thursday from 5 to 7. Nick, I'm anxious to get down to BKD's. I hear that they've got some of the best burgers.
They have some of the best food around in the Chandler area, so this is going to be a great happy hour.
I got to see what I'm doing. Well, my wife's out of town, and so I'm just babysitting the kids, so I think I'll rather attend this.
All right, cool. Carpool.
All right, so this coming up this Thursday. Even if you don't want to hang out with agents, just go for the burgers. Anyway, okay. This Thursday, May 19th. All right. Sholo in the White Mountains. We have our own designated broker, Dwayne Fouts, coming up to the White Mountains Friday, May 20th at 3 p.m. So make sure you attend that. If you're up in the White Mountains, make the drive. It's always great to hear from our designated broker. All right. Well, we got Anthony in the house, so later on we can talk about this. But we are doing a Top Gun movie event. This is to me the most highly anticipated movie. Well, of the past 3 years, because I think it was supposed to come out 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And they said to hold back, probably because of COVID. So maybe Nick, can you throw out that link?
Yeah, so you're able to register if you go to westusarsvp.com. I know we've got the bit.ly link on the screen, but you can go to westusarsvp.com. The Saturday showing was sold out in about a day. The Sunday showing does have some seats available, so if you have not jumped on that, please do so. Again, tickets are capped at 2 per agent, so you can sign up, you can bring a spouse, you can bring a friend, you can bring a child, but you get 2 tickets per agent at West USA. We want to make sure as many agents as possible are able to attend. A big thank you to all the sponsors, and like we said, Anthony's in the room, so we'll give him shouts as well. But make sure to get signed up as soon as you can, because this is going to sell out. And officially, Mikey, that took 4 minutes to go through those announcements.
All right,
So,
yeah, that's pretty fast. And then we're
calm
gonna make
down.
sure that Anthony brings a couple phone books for you, so you can
There's no
you can
seats.
see the screen.
There's no seats for me to sit, but thank you for that lovely comment.
Anthony. Anyways, wow. All right. Well, happy Monday,
Mike's
everybody.
been spicy since 7 o'clock this morning, just FYI.
All right, and as a reminder, Todd's going to have the slides up on the Facebook groups later on this afternoon. So if you're curious about what's going on in the market, which I am, a lot of changes. Interesting to see what's the trends are. So with that, let's bring in Matt Baker, give us our mortgage minute and see what's going on in the mortgage industry.
Let's go. Yeah, rates are kind of where they were last week and the week before. So, which is kind of a nice change because they've been kind of on a steady climb, the last, 6 months. So, even though they're in the mid fives, I'm not seeing a whole lot of demand, at least in the mid price tier. I still had an offer this weekend. We were competing 13 offers on a $600,000 house. So there's still demand out there, I think is my point. And if you look back at research, and I've talked about this here before, rising rates doesn't always mean lower prices. And so, there's a fine line, and I get that. But I think in general, the market is still really strong from a demand perspective, and even with these mid rates. But today, let's talk about something a little bit different, just more fun, home buying myths. So one of the things that I get, and this is a question I'm getting quite often, I'm assuming you all agents are as well, I should wait to buy until the home prices and mortgage rates fall, which, if you watch the news or you watch TV, you probably have seen some advertisements that say something similar to that, which I think is kind of a mistake. But nevertheless, there is really no correlation, like I mentioned before, between rising rates and lower home prices. And so you really just need to be careful with that kind of conversation. But here's what the experts say is that prices and rates will continue to raise this year. And that just means that if you wait, you're going to pay more later. And who cares where the rate is? It's where the price of the home is, because the difference in the rate, so what? It's, $30 more, $100 more, $200 more, but then you spend 20, 30, 40, 50,000 more. It's a little bit different than just a point higher in interest rate.
Yeah, my lead question to every person I talk with that has got concerns about rates going up and I don't want to buy because the rates are getting up. First question out of my mouth, do you like money? Because if you like money, you better jump in because you're going to be leaving money on the table.
Exactly. Yeah. Love it. So let's go into seller myth here. I can't set the asking price for my house at whatever I want. Well, reality, you can just pick any price. I don't know. There's really a reason we don't want to do that. But I talked to a seller this weekend who was happened to relocate to St. Louis, and their agent was like, well, we just went off what the agent told us, listed it at 1.3, and then came back and said, well, you know what? It's been on the market 10 days. We need to drop you to $1 million. I'm like, whoa, yeah, that's a pretty big gap. I would be a little concerned that you're really talking to an expert in the real estate field, but you really want to make sure that you are, right? And you're telling your sellers like, hey, this is why I listen to Todd Menard's numbers. This is why I get all the data. This is why I'm in the business. I'm working, not just here to list a house, just to list a house. So let's go to the next one. A buyer myth: waiving the home inspection is a good idea if I want my offer to stand out. Oh man, I would never say that that's a good idea. Waiving it would obviously going to cost you in the long run. I mean, even if they had a previous inspection, I would be really lit. I would want my own person to get in there and look at the property. So I think you'd be really careful about stuff like that. And then the other, if you add on to that, it's this appraisal waiver conversation, and obviously in a market where you have 13 offers on a particular house, I mean, there's going to be people that want to waive that. And then we have strategies on appraisal gap coverage. We have strategies to kind of help mitigate that. If you're putting more than 20% down, it's really kind of like paper, you're shuffling numbers around. It's not like your loan amount would stay the same potentially, right? Because if it comes in 2 or 3% low, you've got enough down. Does it really, is it really going to impact you? So you have to kind of think about that as well. But of course, also have to come to grips. So you're going to maybe pay a little bit more than what the appraisal says.
Todd, I want to ask Todd a question on this. Is there any risk for me as a listing agent to allowing a buyer to waive an inspection? Because for me, I advise my clients, don't let a buyer waive inspections. I mean, because it's CYA all the time, right?
No, that's perfect, Mike. You're absolutely right. You don't, because again, there could be some underlying thing that the inspector picks up that can cause a problem to go away. Remember, the sellers are not only disclosing what they know, but what they should have known, and so there is some contingent liability there. But to most of the thing is the buyer's side, and here's what I just want to let everybody know: not so much from the listing side, but from the buyer side, you might be violating your fiduciary duty to your client to recommend to them that they waive anything. In fact, you're supposed to have their best interests at heart. So the very first thing you should always say is, no, we shouldn't waive the appraisal. No, we shouldn't waive the inspection. No, we shouldn't waive anything. And then at that particular point, only after the consumers talk to an attorney what it means to waive something should they then consider waiving it.
All right, thanks, Todd. All right, Matt.
All right, last one here. I have to renovate my house before selling it. And I think you just got to pick the right. You got to be an expert in your field. You got to know, is this market a market that pays more for a renovated house than a non-renovated house? And you have to have the data, and you have to be an expert. And so the reality is, if you work with a good real estate professional, you're going to be able to kind of navigate through some of those questions on, is it worth it to renovate or not? And I don't know those answers, but hopefully that sparks maybe a question inside of you that can help maybe get some of that data to maybe help a client. Because if you look at the inventory out there, there's probably a disparity between fixing up and not fixing it up. And you may have a buyer that is frustrated. And there are renovation loans out there right now. That's a big hot button. There are options for people that want to buy a house that don't necessarily have the money to finance the renovations. You can do a renovation loan to help with that. So that's always something to consider. If you have more questions, we can jump into that. But that's what I got for the day. Enjoy.
All right.
Have a great week.
Appreciate it, Matt. As always, good stuff. All right. So moving right along to our 3-pack. So talk about after the close. And we've talked about this in the past, and we have a couple classes coming up later on this week, so I thought I would just talk about this through a 3-pack. Encourage everybody to think about attending our classes coming up this Thursday, because Todd, I feel like when I examine agents' businesses, and I examine my past business style and philosophies and so forth, the money's left on the table after the close. Because that's where all the money is to be made. We all remember our first time. You call up your buyer 12 months later to only find out they sold and moved, and that pain never goes away. And I remember the first time that happened to me, and I'm like, I'm not going to let that happen to me. And we our goal as agents is to build a referral-based business. And if we want to truly build a referral-based business, all of that takes place after the close. So we're going to go through it. Tip number 1 is develop a multiple touch system. Don't ever assume, no matter how great your customer service is, or how great how you think your customer service is and how great you think it is, don't assume that your clients are going to remember you when it comes time to transact again in the future, or when they're talking with someone who's looking to buy and sell, don't assume that you're going to be top of mind and that they're just going to remember you. You have to stay top of mind. So you have to determine, and you come up with your own system, but determine how often and how you will connect throughout the first 12 months. For us, and that's what we'll talk about on Thursday, is we have a 23 touch system. I know after I hand someone the keys, my system is going to touch them at least 23 times over the next 12 months. And then when you do thinking about sending them stuff of value, I'm always trying to send them stuff of value. I'm not saying it's wrong and saying it's bad or anything like that. I'm not a big newsletter guy. Those newsletters come, especially upcoming events. I can't read them. The print's so small and so forth. So I put myself into my client's shoes and ask, what is something that they would want, something that I would want, something that is of value?
Yeah, totally. And I think we should start off, Mike, taking your introduction to this segment today. The ultimate objective here is the fact that, yes, that consumer is probably not going to sell and repurchase another home for the typical trade cycle of 5 to 8 years. I get that. However, the average person, statistically, the average person in your database is going to come in contact with 5 people a year that are ready, willing, and able to purchase a home. The question is, what do I have to do to position myself to have that consumer refer that business to me? And so, there is an algorithm. Keith probably more than likely teaches it in all of his social media classes. You'll probably bring it up. Certainly, we're talking about the touch point system. But again, it's just one of those things that, we should be sending 80% lifestyle messages after the close and 20% real estate messages, because during the purchase, what's their primal objective? Buying or selling a house. It should be the opposite. 80% about buying the house, 20% about not. But after the purchase, you've got to engage them. You have to romanticize them. You have to talk about hobbies and interests and things of that nature. And that's where you're going to get repeat business. Follow the Brian Buffini, Michael Mayer approach, and you should do well.
All right. Second is create closing events. I am not a closing gift guy. It has been years and years and years since I've ever sent a client an actual closing gift, because a closing gift, so what? It's got my name on it, maybe it's brand on it and so forth. It doesn't really help me, and it doesn't really generate business. So I like to create closing gift events that are going to truly generate more business, such as housewarming parties. I'm a huge fan of housewarming parties because now I have an opportunity to communicate, meet with, and chat with their closest family and friends. But it goes even deeper than that. One, you have to figure out, if you're going to do housewarming parties, what is it that you're going to provide? You have to generate that system so it just happens. Develop a system to collect data on each attendee. Just inviting them and not collecting names, phone numbers, and emails ahead of time. And if all you're doing is, hey, welcome to the housewarming party, here's some food, and here's my business card, you're not going to have a way to follow up with them. So you want to develop a specific system in which to do that. And then you develop a system on how you're going to build relationships with them. We start the relationship building process with each attendee prior to the housewarming party. And then that way, when they all show up, we're not strangers anymore. And then there's that continued system of how do you follow up and so forth.
Mike, for decades, you and I have been talking about client parties, housewarming parties specifically, and the value. Stop sending. First of all, hold your money accountable. Stop sending things that don't matter. If you're going to do anything, you have to review what the success pattern of whatever it is you were doing is, what's happening, what are the results. But to that particular point, I think we all know that rather than buying leads and doing some of these other things, we really should be putting that money into our database. And if we're doing that correctly, it starts at the home warming party. because at that particular point you have that conversation with their clients ahead of time. You send out these really lavish looking invitations. You don't send out pieces of crap. You take the time and do it right, because if you're going to send out something nice, the consumer, the seller, is the new owner, is much more willing to give you the names and addresses of the people that are their dear friends. But if you're just going to send some regular, slapstick invitation, they're probably going to be a little less likely to want to give you all that personal information.
Yeah, and we use a system out there that we just upload all the information, sends out the invites, and tracks it for us. And we know who's coming, who's not. They can communicate with us and so forth. And then the third thing is we talk about the 23-touch system, but you want to automate as much as possible. It can't all be automated. There has to be some personal touch. But it's imperative, going back to, for those of you that are using Wise Agent or aren't using a CRM system, you have to have, if you don't have a CRM system, don't throw a party. Don't ask for people's names, phone numbers, and email addresses, because it's not going to do you any good, because you're not going to do anything with it.
That's right.
But leverage your CRM, especially when you're setting up your multiple touch system or you're meeting people at this closing event. Take as many notes about all conversations and set up task reminders. If I'm going to touch you X amount of times over the next 12 months, how am I going to remember on next Tuesday, it's time now for me to reach out to the Menards? Well, that is what your CRM system does, and Wise Agent will show you how to do it. And then leverage the MLS and leverage your iFound Agent website's automated features. For us, that's just what I love. I hand you the keys to your house. That's what I love about the iFound Agent website. We call them on our team Recon Neighborhood Reports, because we throw that name in front of everything. And so every month, our clients get an email from our website saying this is all the recent activity in the last 30 days in your neighborhood. And what's iFound Agents, it's even better than that. And you can set up so anytime there's a new listing or a new closing, you can do it. They'll get alerted as well. You can do that in the MLS as well. Most agents just use the MLS to help buyers, but with the iFound Agent website, the minute that they click that button, they're now on your website and they're living on your website, and it gets them away from the Zillows and the Realtor.coms and the Redfins.
I was just going to say that you become the Zillow.
Yeah.
And that's really what your objective is. You're the site of choice when it comes to finding out about what's going on in your market and your neighborhood. And again, just to recap the value of staying in communication with your people, if there's a cost to every new consumer that you have, and you're either buying it or it's happening organically. And the benefit of CRMs and the benefit of post-closing relationships is the organic part.
Yeah, new client acquisition costs are so much higher than the referrals, and that's why we're after referrals. But we all know that we're here to build a referral-based business, but many of us, because we don't have a system for it. So, all right. So with that, as a reminder, so this Thursday we are doing a series of these classes. We're going to go through specifically what we do. And you could modify it. And we're going to give you some great tips and some great resources and just let you know how we do it on our end. I have yet to do a housewarming party where I haven't walked away with 1 to 2 clients. And we're going to just go through the whole system. So it's coming up this Thursday, 10 o'clock at the Chandler office. And at 1:30, same afternoon, up here at the North Phoenix office. Again, doesn't matter what office you're out of, you can attend. And there is the website to, don't click on it, but just write down that website and get registered, and hope we'll see everybody there. All right.
Bum, 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 bum.
All right, so we're going to play a little game. So we're excited to have Anthony Cucci, who is the owner of HCP Property Inspections. Most agents here at West USA are already using HCP, and those of you who are not, well, you're overpaying for starters. But Todd, I want to play a little Anthony Cucci trivia.
Okay.
Do you know what his favorite band is?
No.
Nick, do you know what Anthony's favorite band is?
No.
His favorite band is Chicago, believe it or not.
Oh, good choice.
Yeah, I love Chicago.
Boston would have been better.
Many memories with my mom listening to Chicago.
Are these trivia like
that was the only one.
Okay.
And Anthony and I are the only ones in the room that get that.
That's
Oh, I'm glad we do a webinar then for everybody else to be included.
For the other 8,000 people on the webinar today, it wasn't for you.
All right. So actually, Nick had this idea, and because we know you on a personal level, and like you and I and Ryan, my partner, we have conversations with you just about running our business because one, you're in the same industry, but you run an incredibly successful business. You and your wife run another successful business. And Nick's like, well, why don't we just have Anthony on and talk about how to run successful businesses and not talk about inspections per se. Let's talk about that. So I was just going to let you take it away and
just give me the floor.
well, yeah, well, you didn't give me any bullet points, so
I know. Yeah, giving me a microphone on the floor is pretty dangerous, but I'll try to do justice here. Yeah, I mean, we own a couple different businesses. We've been, we've owned a company for, man, as long as we've been married almost, I think going on 18 years almost now, so that we've owned one company or another. I think both of us, my wife and I, are entrepreneurs at heart. So I kind of just wanted to kick it off and talk about that, like what it is to be an entrepreneur. And I talk to a lot of people, and I hear, usually what I ask them is like, why do you want to start your own company? And they're like, well, I'm tired of working 50 hours for somebody. And I think by definition, an entrepreneur is a person that's willing to work 80 hours to avoid working 40 for somebody else, right?
Exactly.
And so
that's awesome.
I think, the amount of time it goes into running a business and a team and real estate or what that, is far more than what it is that you're putting in
Well, I think what a lot of agents don't comprehend or deeply comprehend is there is no difference between me buying a restaurant and setting up a business as opposed to getting my real estate license and now I've got to build a business to put food on the table. It's just different industries, but it should be treated the same.
Yeah, 100%. I think when you run a real estate business, whether it's a team or an individual, you kind of have to look at it like you're operating your own business, right? And so there's so much more than real estate that goes into that, right? And so, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but processes and I get asked all the time, like, well, what do you do? I'm like, well, pick a title, pick a hat, and you kind of wear them all, right?
Yeah.
So I think when you first launch a company, you're kind of like you do everything, right? And so we'll kind of get into some tips that I have later on, but I think understanding what it is to run a business and what it is that it takes and to kind of grow it are important. I think for the first step and anybody thinking about doing it, and I'm going to ruffle some feathers here, but I think Simon Sinek wrote a book, Find Your Why, right? And I think everybody should know the why behind their business, but I think a lot of people, I need to throw away the hype behind the book, right? Yeah. Like I think a lot of people don't understand it. And so you get people spending 5 minutes on their why, and all they come up with is a run-on sentence that doesn't have any business application at all, right? So you really have to kind of dive deep in and really understand like what you're doing, what problem does it solve, who your customer is going to be, how you're going to market to them, things like that. What differentiators are you have? What's your good variance going to be? And then really understand the perks of having that business, right? And which is a lot of what I hear when realtors talk about, like, oh, I love, finding people their dream homes. That's a perk. That's not the why of why you do it. And so understanding a perk versus a value, right? I think that's really important. And once you understand like what the value is that you bring, then you can kind of start on your business plan and how you're going to,
All right. So I'm a new agent. I sit down with you and you're having this conversation with me. What are some things that I would specifically do to help to develop that why?
Understand why you want to be in real estate. What is it that's driving you to do that? Is it financial freedom? Is it, the ability to kind of create, with a path, right? To be able to create a business from a path, like what it is that kind of drives you to do what you're about to embark on. And a lot of people think it's money, and it's not. I would say that if money's your main motivator, there's easier ways to make money than what you're going to embark on. But I mean, there's so many different avenues and questions that you probably need to ask yourself when it comes to that.
Yeah. So Anthony, I want everybody to understand, there's home inspectors in the industry that, go out and they start their own little home inspection business and, they've got themselves and then maybe they realize that their valley's kind of deep and, it's pretty wide. And so as a result, they hire one home inspector for each quarter of the valley, one for the Southeast Valley, Southwest Valley, Northwest Valley, Southeast or Northeast Valley. And so I want just quickly, how many states are you in now?
Yeah, so we're in 16 markets and 13 states.
Yeah. So when we have Anthony sitting in front of you saying, hey, here's a guy who has built a business, he's an entrepreneur and all these different things, I just want you to understand the scope of what we're talking about here. Yeah. We're not talking about a home inspector who's trying to, put a person in every quadrant of the valley. We're talking about someone who has truly that entrepreneurial, nationwide perspective. And by the way, if you're a team that's out there right now, it is legal for you to operate your business as a real estate practice in more than one state without you being licensed in every state. Now, it's called business expansion models. I've been doing it for years, but I can, again, these are just some things that if you have any of these types of interests, so it's, Mike, you brought up new agents, but this is also the same conversation, finding your why, your passion, why you wake up every day. Somebody told me when I was at KW years ago, and I was a master faculty there, they have a big thing about the why, and that's WHY for everybody that's out there. And one girl came up to me one day and she says, here's the definition I've selected. And I said, okay, what's that? She says, it's what makes you do what you don't want to do when you know you have to do it. And I thought for a moment, I thought that was extremely important because, we don't want to do things sometimes. And if we don't, we damage our business. So our why is the thing that feeds us, that gives us the motivation to overcome those self-limiting obstacles that are, I just don't feel like doing it today. But anyway, go ahead, Anthony. So I wanted to make sure everybody understood the scope of what you've created first. And that's just one of your businesses. So, but again, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I tell people it's organized chaos and sometimes it's not even organized. So, but I think what's important is, whether you're planning on an expansion or not, I think you have to leave the door open for that, right? Like you have to envision that you're going to be busy at some point. And for me, it's about creating processes and procedures. And I know we talk about that with agents all the time. Come up with a process, come up with, a procedure that you can follow, that you can kind of fall in line with. We talk about CRMs all the time. And for me early on, it's about documenting everything I do. And, for one of the best pieces of advice I got when I first started was to just spend 2 weeks and just write down what I do on a daily basis every single day. And then you kind of have to figure out, revenue bearing activities versus non-revenue bearing activities. And from there, delegate out appropriately, right? So I think people are always afraid to expand and grow. But I think, if you're not prepared to do that, if you don't have the processes in place, if you don't understand what your scalability looks like, you're kind of failing already. So early on, before, chaos kind of kicks in, really spend some time and jot down what it is that you do, how you do it. Create a playbook for yourself so that should the time come that you want to expand, or should the time come that you build a team, that all those processes are replicable, right? So that's really important. I think for us, it really helped us grow, really fast. I think over the last 3 years, we added on 8 states. We have 62 inspectors nationwide now that are all W-2 employees, right? So I think understanding like what that looks like for yourself and knowing, how to follow that process is good. And I think in talking to most business people or agents or that are looking to expand teams, I think the biggest point of fear is that, they can't let go, right? They have to be able to do everything and they have to control the process. And so I think the first thing you should know is that you're not a special flower. Everybody else can do what you're doing. You just have to be able to delegate it appropriately. I kind of give the analogy all the time. Nobody's ever going to love your baby as much as you do. You just got to hope to find some really cool aunts and really cool uncles that will really kind of take care of the process for you. And so that's what your goal is to kind of find those aunts and uncles out there that love what you're doing and love what your business is about, and then trust them to delegate. I think, successful people manage people. They don't manage, the functions, right? And so I think understanding that and understanding that ability kind of opens up, the process for you a little bit. So I think that's super important. My dad used to tell me, learn to accept your flaws and build around it. And if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Right. And so
no growth there, right?
Yeah. So I think it's really important to just build around like what you're, I don't want to say deficient at, but what your weaknesses are. And the first step is knowing that you do have weaknesses, and
Admitting it.
yeah. And if you're working with your wife like I do, is understanding what that is in each other as a business side, not a relationship side. And that's a whole separate conversation about, working with spouses and things like
Protecting your
that.
family.
On our team, we talk about all the time. There's that saying out there that, you identify your strengths and your weaknesses and work on your weaknesses. And honestly, I just think, we think it's just BS. Identify your strengths, double down on your strengths, because that's what you're really good with,
Yeah.
and then find people
Delegate out.
around you that can take care of your weaknesses for you. There are just certain things at the end of the day. I'm 51. I'm just never going to be good at, and I've given up trying. One, staying organized on transactions. That's a weakness of mine. Well, that's why we have a transaction coordinator and let her do everything. Because otherwise, I'm just spinning my wheels, focusing on and trying to be better and trying to be best at transaction management. Well, and I love that term. Haven't heard the term. We use green time versus red time, but I like revenue bearing and non-revenue bearing concept, and focus on those things.
Right. Yeah. I think for me, we going back to what I said earlier, kind of writing down your daily activities and understanding what those are. When you can see what you do on a daily basis and what you're spending 13 hours a day on, and you sit down, you're like, well, only 6 of those items are things that I'm really passionate and great at, right? Everything else can be something else. For us early on, it was understanding what a transaction coordinator was and how that would impact my life tremendously. And so we brought a transaction coordinator on about 2.5, 3 years ago, right at the peak of our growth. And I would spend about 80% of my day on managing transactions that were already scheduled, were already booked, right? So that's just managing the process on the back end. And that took me away from getting more volume in.
Business, yeah.
And so, understanding that, taking on the risk of bringing an employee on to manage that really opened up the door for us to kind of expand. And I think that's the next thing is, understand, my dad used to say, my dad's my mentor, my business mentor. And that's the other thing I would tell people is find a business mentor that you can talk to, find somebody that you can just run ideas by. It doesn't have to be somebody that you see weekly or daily or anything like that, but just somebody that you trust that you can kind of just confide into. But my dad would always say, my dad was a huge sports fan, and he would always say, you can't steal second with your foot on first. And I think a lot of businesses operate.
I like that.
It's a good analogy. Yeah.
I think a lot of businesses operate out of fear, and they're afraid to take that chance, or there's a dollar number out there that's super intimidating. So I think understanding and learning to take calculated risk, understanding what risk rewards are, what your competition looks like in that phase, I think is really important, right? So, and you can take chances if you have an actionable plan, right? So sit down, write a plan, and that understand that plan's going to change daily, weekly. I think those are really important avenues to kind of set up your business for success.
Well, and that's kind of why we were talking about realtors and West USA agents and their business model and their business strategies. Agents talk to other agents about their business. They don't talk to and they don't think about, and what I'm understanding from the conversations I'm having with other business leaders outside of real estate. Why you came up is because you have run multiple successful businesses and you work with agents every single day. And I think that when we tell our agents you should have a team around them, we're not saying you should start a team or grow a team or join a team unless you want to do those things. You should be working with other like-minded business people in your business, whether it's home warranty, title lending, etc. So we have Anthony here to bounce ideas off of, get his different perspective on growing and building a business and the things that he's saying. And we haven't prepped him because he didn't have any slides. He had his little email that we didn't get privy to. He's talking about intentionality. He's talking about having a plan. As he's discussing things, what we recommend to our agents is make it relative to you. What does growth mean? Growth doesn't have to have 68 employees and being in 13 states. It could be doing 5 more transactions next year or trying to farm a different neighborhood. But writing down your business plan, writing down what you want to accomplish, that's the first step to that. And, Clay told the story a long, long time ago is that he would always be busy, quote unquote, busy all day long until he finally wrote down what he was busy doing. And he found out that there was a lot of red time or non-productive time during his day. And so once he did that and it kind of opened up his eyes, then he was able to modify his time and do a better job of time blocking for the productive time.
So I want to just quickly reflect, Anthony. You said a minute ago that 3 years ago you brought out on a transaction coordinator, an administrative person, and obviously you then immediately were able to delegate all of those or many of those non-income producing activities to that particular person. I think, in real estate, we have a tendency to believe that the first person we should be bringing on board, is another realtor to, delegate business to, so that you can get a percentage of that realtor's income. And, and that's the wrong reason. You get into helping people because you care about the industry, you care about the customer service level, and you care about people's success. But, you've got to, that would be wrong. The first person a realtor, and this is a statistic all over the internet, a process, the very first person a realtor should hire is an administrator, a transaction coordinator. We have them here at West USA for you. They do have to be licensed with the brokerage that you work for. So it does have to, funnel through. But to that particular point, you also said that you then documented everything. And again, that's something that provides hindsight. It's something that provides accuracy. You document all the things that you do every day, or have somebody follow you and document everything you do every day. You're going to be enlightened to the fact that you're not really working every day. Certainly not all that much towards your objective, your primal goal.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest surprise for us, is when we sat down and looked at like our daily activities, how much time was consumed with not bringing in new stuff, right? It was just, we have so much busy work going on that we've kind of moved away from our primary goal. And kind of like Mike alluded to earlier, I think knowing what your strong point is, and for me, that's sales and marketing, and that's always been my strong point, right? So the natural fit was to bring somebody on to kind of manage the back end piece of it. If your strong point's not that, if you're afraid to talk to people and you don't like microphones, and you're afraid to meet somebody for lunch, maybe you go the other route and you kind of manage the process behind it, and you have sales reps out there. But I don't think anybody in real estate is bad at that, right? Like they're doing it because they love it. And so, yeah, I think that's really important. We talked about plans earlier, business plans. I think the biggest mistake people make with business plans is they write them and they kind of put them up on a board, and every now and then they kind of, okay, am I doing this? Am I not doing this? I think a business plan has to be like workable. It has to be something that you look at on a daily basis or a weekly basis, that you hold yourself accountable for. And it can't just be pipe dreams. It can't just be long-term goals. It's got to be short, attainable goals, right? So, understand what your finances are going to look like, understand what your activities are going to look like, and then adjust accordingly, right? So if you set out at the beginning of the year and you say, I'm going to do X amount of cold calls a day, and 60 days in, you realize that's not attainable for you. Well, why would you keep on with that target, right? Adjust that target, figure out what's in your life that's preventing you from doing that. Maybe reduce that call a little bit, delegate out the things that are occupying your time, and then build back up to that. But I think a lot of people don't have measurables in place. So they kind of just go about it. I wrote a business plan in December. Sometimes I follow it, sometimes I don't. And then, you're just kind of lost, right? So
you're basically saying, though, plan where you want to be at the end of the year, but then you need what we call in any business industry, we call it an action plan, which is how are we going to get there?
Yeah.
What are we going to do today? It's funny because if it says today I'm going to call 5 of my clients, my past clients, and then tomorrow I'm going to call another 5, that's just your plan, 5 a day.
Right.
And you don't call your 5 today, guess how many you have to do tomorrow? You have to do 10, because you got to make up for the 5 you didn't do today, or else the very first day you do it, you have to come to the realization you're not going to hit your goal. And so something has to change. But by having that action plan, that's the accountability part. And you can you have to tweak it, but you also have to know yourself. What will you do and what won't you do?
Yeah, I think you have to be uncomfortably comfortable with what, with yourself.
Well, I think that's it's the real dilemma. We can't assume that every agent likes to sell and is good at selling. And so it becomes a skill versus money thing. I think inherently, and I don't know what it is about our industry, but inherently as agents, we're cheap. We won't pay $30 a month for our CRM. We won't pay the $80 a month or whatever the premium version of the website is. we won't give up a percentage to hire a coach or a mentor. And every other industry, when you start a business, you have startup costs.
Mhm.
And you have business costs. The transaction coordinator, it's just part of the cost, but we're inherently cheap. But on the flip side is, for a lot of agents, is where am I going to get the money to pay for these things? Because I thought this was a lot easier. When I got my license, I thought deals are just going to fall from heaven, and I thought I was going to be able to go to Starbucks, talk to somebody, go out and sell them a home and so forth. The area that I think that we spend the least amount of time studying is just true sales training, sales. I mean, you should be getting every book out there on the art of sales, on closing deals and so forth. And then you couple those two when you can understand where the sales are coming from, and because you have to be proficient in that. It's not a matter whether like or not. Todd, what's on our real estate license? What does it say?
Well, you didn't set me up right. I'm not really sure. It says salesperson.
Exactly.
Yeah, unless you have the associate broker's license, but yeah.
Way to complicate it. No, but it says salesperson. So we're in that.
Yeah,
that is what we do.
Yeah.
So we have to figure that out, but we have to invest dollars into ourselves and dollars into our business.
Yeah, and I don't think it has to be like your mentor or your coach or whoever it is. I don't think it necessarily, like, you have to be open, right? I don't think it has to be somebody in real estate. You should be getting ideas from different avenues. I'll tell a story. Early on, about 2.5 years ago, there's a pretty large real estate agent that started a team, and they wanted to get like a group of masterminds together, group team leaders together. And I reached out to this agent. I said, hey, are you only looking for team leaders for real estate? Like, I'm not a real estate agent, but I own a pretty large inspection company. And while our daily activities are probably not the same, I bet you the growth model that you're going through is very much like what I had to go through. And I feel like I can contribute and provide value. And the response was, no, I'm only looking for real estate agents.
And that is so close-minded and stupid.
And so I think the idea behind where you get your, I love having business conversations. We'll be at a happy hour or somewhere else, and it doesn't even have to be about real estate. I love business, right? That's my passion. And more than anything, like I love building businesses. Like, I love starting from the ground and going and ramping up. And I love to have that conversation. And I've spent hours talking to people about just random ideas. And I think everybody in this room knows, like, every realtor has another idea that they want to do, right? Mm-hmm. Like some side business that they want to bring on and things like that. And Todd, you and I have talked about some ideas that, like, from an inventor standpoint and things like that. And I think, with our background and, with my wife's background and what she's been able to accomplish in the baking industry and things like that, like, there's just a passion for it. So I don't think it really matters where you get your ideas from. No, you should absolutely steal other people's ideas, right? Like,
you should be in situations yes. where you're getting ideas. Mm-hmm. And I want to brings another point. I want to talk about our relationship as agents with our home inspectors and our title reps and our lenders. I feel like we treat our industry partners kind of like slaves, and we're not very we're not very nice to them, and we're more demanding of them and so forth. I've always viewed, especially with you and and our title reps and everybody, I view it as we're all in a partnership. My title rep, I get so many ideas of how to generate money from talking with them. And I sometimes don't think we view our industry partners as partners. We call them partners. We treat you more like employees, but there's a lot of synergy there, and there's a lot of ideas to be had because we're all in the same industry.
Right. I tell people all the time when I meet them that I'm looking for more than just a transactional relationship, right? So most people, they call a home inspector, you see them at the inspection, if occasionally you ask them to sponsor something that's important to you, they'll throw some money at you. And that's the limit of the relationship, right? It's transactional. And so what I try to tell, people that I encounter all the time is I'm really looking for, like, a relationship. Like, how can I bring value to you? But more importantly, can you bring value to me, right? Like, yes. It's got to be mutual. Yeah. And I think for anybody that says, oh no, it's what I can do for you, that's a lie. And if they're not lying, they don't know any better yet.
Yeah, it's like you say in my classes. You always say, I'm looking for relationships beyond the value of goods and services.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think a lot of people tend to like acquire customers, and I don't really care about customers, right? Like I care about relationships. And if business happens because of it, great, fantastic, even better. But if not, and we can still have a relationship, maybe we don't work together. Maybe I'm not the right choice for you. But I promise you that the relationship that we establish, at some point, there'll be a value that I can either help you in a different direction or you can help me in a different direction. And we don't necessarily have to, work together for that to happen. I know agents that have had inspectors for 10 or 15 years. They should absolutely keep those guys, right? Like they've provided a great value to them. And so maybe there's other avenues we can help each other. And I think, alluding to what you said, I think a lot of people just think of us as partners for that specific thing we do. And there's so much more to that relationship that people are leaving on the table.
Who's your all-time favorite agent?
Nick.
That's the correct answer.
That was
Is that too fast? Maybe I should have thought about that a little bit.
All right, you deal with hundreds of agents, on a daily basis, and there are things that I know because of your business acumen, and there are things that you just take a look at what we are doing that are railroading ourselves and just destructive in our business, or not, or things that, gosh, I could just grab that agent by the ear, make them listen to me. These are some of the things that I see, and what are some of the things that you see that common mistakes agents are making that you just want to grab them by the ear and just say, do this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing that I see is processes. I think most agents don't have like really great processes in place. They might have a little bit of process, they might have a little bit of procedure, but they don't have I call it a playbook. They don't have a playbook that they follow or a playbook in action. And as people start to expand, they kind of develop one. But for the most part, a lot of agents, kind of like I did today with this slide that I never gave you, a lot of agents just kind of wing it, right? And they're successful. And then they kind of go back at the end of the year, like, how am I going to duplicate that? And I think, as you're starting to expand and you're starting to build and as you become more successful, that's, organically that'll just happen. And people will want to work with you, right? Like if you're a big agent or you do a lot of stuff as an individual, like new agents will kind of be like, well, what's he doing that's so successful? Or what's she doing that's working for her? And I think if you have that playbook, if you have the processes in place, I think that opportunity to expand, because let's face it, that's what it is. It's an opportunity at that point. And if you don't have those processes in place, you're kind of just giving up that opportunity. And so I think whether that's your goal or not, I think you have to expand. I think you have to have processes and procedures in place.
One of the things I just want to share to everybody listening right now is that at West USA, we have a coaching department. And, although coaching isn't always right for everybody, if you're not achieving your desired goals or you'd like to know where to start, the coaching department offers a no-charge one-on-one get-together meetings to fill out what's called an economic plan, it's a Microsoft Excel business plan that they can create with you. It's your numbers. It tells you how many leads you have to go after and what type of leads, potentially what the success patterns are. There's a lot of things in there that could maybe help you move your needle a little bit. But to Anthony's point, the very first thing you have to do is look at the person in the mirror. And then when you go beyond that, look at the processes, look at the systems. What are you doing every day, and is it working? And then, of course, we're not asking you to do things really that are really, something that you won't do. But again, there are 13 plus different lead generation activities. You're gonna, your behavioral assessment's going to identify one of those is going to be something that works for you. So, but you might need help finding which one that is. So reach out to the coaching department is, I guess, my point, and ask them for that free one-on-one with our coach and get that business plan.
Yeah. One of the last things I want to add is, like, I'm going to take the surprise out of the box. I promise you, at some point you will fail. Like, it's just going to happen. Yeah. And so you have an option to look at it as a failure or as a learning opportunity. And those who look at it as a learning opportunity, there's really no failure there, right? Like, it's okay. I'm going to earn. Like I mentioned, we owned a couple businesses now. We had a couple businesses in the past that just didn't pan out. But we learned from that. And when we started a new thing or started a new process, we made sure to kind of put that in effect. So I'd say it's the same thing with, real estate or investing. Like if you make a mistake in investments, chances are you're not going to make that mistake again, right? Like lesson learned. So I think, you have to like come to terms with the fact that take a chance. Don't be afraid to fail, because it's part of it. It's part of the gig. It's part of the process. It's part of the game. And then the other thing is, comfortability kills. And I think a lot of people experience success early on and they kind of plateau. And I think they plateau because they're like, okay, well, I've had this huge success now and I'm comfortable, I'm good. And they stop doing the things that allowed them to kind of have that initial push. And I think that's probably the hugest killer of business or the biggest hugest. Is that a word? I don't know.
No, we'll go with it.
Yeah.
The biggest killer of business of startups is comfortability, right? Like you have a huge month, maybe you sell, even in real estate, maybe you sell 4 homes your first month. You're like, yes, it's always going to be.
Well,
like
we
this.
always talk about, we agents tend to take the foot off the pedal.
Yeah.
And then they run out of money and then they put the foot back on the pedal instead of just keeping it going.
Which is the peak and valley in everybody's income.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Which
before
is a shame.
I got one more question, and I noticed, I think up there, I got an extra C in your email address. So it's hcphomeinspection.com.
Yep.
And that's Anthony's phone number. So if you want to reach out to him, chat with him, definitely feel free to do so. And just from us, on the business side, you've been our home inspector for a couple of years now, and you guys do an amazing job. So,
Thank you.
And you provide a lot of value to us. All right. So a lot of us in this industry, we moved from a different industry, and now now we're selling real estate. So let's just say, hypothetically, we packed up your stuff, dropped you off in Albuquerque, and said, here's your real estate license. You now are a realtor. What are the first couple things you would do?
Whew.
Oh, that's a great question.
Well, I'm not a realtor, Mike, so no, I'm just joking. I think, really understand, like, or find somebody to kind of take me under, right? To learn from, understand what that market looks like, because it's different, right? And so when when I'll change it over to home inspections, when we launch a new market, every market's the same, but every market's a little different. And that little bit of difference makes all the difference. And so understanding what that individual market's quirk is the key to success. And if you can carve out a niche in that quirk, that's your freeway to freedom right there, right? So that's what's going to kind of let you take off and allow you to build all the, I don't want to call general sales, but if you can establish a niche, that'll allow you to build the back end, right? And so I think that's key.
So the first one is get with someone who understands the market and learn your market.
Right.
Okay, what's the next one? Do you have another one?
I think that's
I'm just excited now.
Yeah. All right, we're shipping Todd to Albuquerque.
There we go.
Yeah, maybe don't pick Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Well,
I wanted you to
might
be close
okay.
enough to come back and see your family. That's all.
Yeah, no, I mean, to that point, I think understanding, like, if you're really talking about expanding or you're really talking about moving, whether it's into a different state or a different city, is really understanding what that looks like, right? Like, I think that's really important to understand what, from Phoenix to Chandler, it's a different clientele.
Yep.
Chandler to Ahwatukee, different clientele. So you take the states out of it and you just market to market, understanding what that looks like, what that variance looks like, because there is a variance.
And remember, you're going to show up in every market. And that's probably one of the concerns that, we all have is the person you look at in the mirror. If you shift the market, you change brokerages, you change teams, you change whatever, because, it's going to be so much greater over here. I'm going to do so much better. But yet you get into it, you show up, you do the same things you did previously. And guess what? You're going to get the same result.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I like your answer. So I would say it would be 3 things for me that I would do. 1, I'd get a CRM.
Of course you would.
Who are you going to put in the CRM, Mike?
Yeah.
2, go out and have real estate conversations. If you're trying to figure out how to get business, go out, talk to people, meet people, and have real estate conversations. And 3, to your point, I'd get a mentor in that area to show me the ropes.
Yeah.
All right, Anthony, appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right,
That's awesome.
and we leave you with the quote of the day. And we'll just say back to home inspections, still $350 comes with the home inspection and termite.
It's $400 now, but yeah. So
okay.
I mean, gas prices being at $19 a gallon. Yeah, so we raised our prices in January. Our base fee starts at $350, and then termites and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Glad I asked ahead of time. All right, leave with the quote of the day from Helen Keller. Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. Isn't that sweet? All right, appreciate everybody joining us today. Go out and sell a home.